Hi, I'm Ross Taylor, your host and guide for Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. I'm also a life coach who supports empaths and sensitive souls, guiding them on the journey back to self acceptance and inner alignment. My passion is connecting with like minded souls, and these conversations are part of fulfilling my purpose and serve to deepen our collective exploration of what it means to live in connection with the sacred. Some weeks you'll hear a sound based offering to open the space, other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. If you enjoy these conversations, please subscribe, rate, and share so others can find their way here. So pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today on Sacred Sundays, our guest is Seryna Myers. Seryna works with people unlearning who they had to be in order to belong, guiding them back to who they've always been. For 12 years, she's supported clients through major life transitions, psychic awakening, and psychedelic experiences, helping them dismantle survival identities and integrate transformation so it becomes embodied rather than intellectualized. Drawing on over 30 years of intuitive reading and a decade channeling angelic wisdom, Seryna helps people reclaim self-trust and step fully into their truth. Her work honors the messy, sacred unraveling that happens when we finally stop performing our healing and start living it. Welcome, Seryna.
Thank you. I'm really, really happy to be here, Ross.
Yeah, it's great to have you here as well. I recently discovered that you were in Nanaimo as well and came and visited you at the store. And I think we met each other probably 9 years ago. I don't believe that, but anyway.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, and it's been really interesting to see how our individual paths have kind of unfolded and then
hmm
kind of converged here in Nanaimo.
Yeah,
Like how beautiful.
yeah. So cool to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So Seryna is going to begin by sharing a channeled message for the collective. So I'll hand it over to you, Seryna.
Okay, so before we start, I want to just bring into awareness, first of all, that it doesn't matter when this was recorded to when you hear it. Energy isn't linear, it's not bound by time. And so, whenever you are finding this episode, whenever this message lands, it is for you. And it's for you to consider. So if you hear it and you think, that's a bunch of hogwash, well, then that's fine. Maybe this wasn't your message. However, please know that whenever it does find you, if it does resonate, it's something to sit with, it's something to listen to. And I do think that the timing of when this episode is going to air is really it's very potent, and it's very tied to the things that were coming in before we even start. So when I first started asking the guides what the collective needed, and by the collective, I mean specifically Ross's community and the people who are going to be listening to this show, we started to get these big themes. And the thing that's interesting is, so I'll tell you what the themes were, first of all. It was enlightenment and prosperity and courage. And when I tuned into those individually, the energy of it felt very urgent. It was something that we were trying to rush towards. It was something that we wanted to claim. It was something we wanted to embody. We are in this frantic energy of wanting to get to the doing, but it's not time yet. We are now in the final shed of the year of the snake. We are still having to examine and surrender and release the belief systems, the energies, the habits, the patterns, all of these things that have kept us in these states of comfort. They've played their part, and we can be grateful for them and the roles that they've played for us. However, they are now, instead of being comforting things, they are now obstacles for the things that we are moving into as we step into that faster energy, that moving forward energy of the horse that is coming very, very, very soon. So we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace. We also need to stop looking at the calendar and deciding that that is the time, because the divine doesn't work that way. We are working in this organic space where things are still unfolding, where we need to allow, where we need to surrender our expectations and our urgency and our demands of things being on our own timeline, where we can step into a greater state of flow so that we can move forward into these states that we're craving. And then I asked the guides, okay, great. So we've got enlightenment, prosperity, courage. Why? Why does it feel so urgent? And it's because each of these things individually gives us a sense of control, a sense of stability, a sense of safety. We're all craving this right now, and it makes sense because on a big global level, if we zoom out and we look at the macro, there was a lot happening. There was a lot of uncertainty, and we are looking for connection. This is not a time to self-isolate. This is not a time to decide you just need to put your nose to the grindstone and just push and push and force to get to the finish line. This is a time where we need to actually think about the collective. We need to rise together. We need to hold each other. We need to be witnesses. We need people. The healing that is required in the next season that is coming is not about the grind. It is not about achieving more or doing more. We're being asked to be in a state of being. We're being asked to be in a state of receptivity. And we are being asked to hold ourselves and hold each other. And in doing so, we actually get that safety, that security, that thing that we're craving underneath these themes that we think we need in order to feel that sense of safety and security. Chasing enlightenment, chasing prosperity, chasing that big adventure and the big courageous leap, those are distractions. Those are illusions of safety. But in the finding of each other and in the finding of ourselves in those circles, that is the medicine that we're looking for. That is how we can feel safe. And the last message I want to leave you with is this beautiful visualization that was shared with me this morning about the year of the horse. And because we have that anxious, nervous kind of energy of wanting to get on with the doing, we feel like as soon as, the calendar flips and we go into year of the horse, that it means we get to go full steam ahead. But the vision that was shared with me is that it's not so much about us being the horse and having to do the running. We get to ride the horse. We get to be supported and taken on the journey. And that's what's coming. And so if you would like to have a gentler journey into that, then I invite you to slow down, to give yourself some space, give yourself a lot of grace, and find the people that you can rise alongside. Because community is so important for us right now. It is the very thing that we are needing for ourselves. And honestly, it's going to be the medicine that heals us all.
Thank you, Seryna. That was great.
Oh, thank you.
I actually felt some emotions coming up during like the middle part. I was surprised by that because I think I just started to like feel the depth of this journey we've been on and certainly speaking about my own perspective, but also like the long haul, because what I've been hearing is that this is the end of a cycle as well. We're in a 1 year. And so we've just finished like a 9-year cycle. And I guess there's just a lot under the surface that is percolating there, right? And we're kind of releasing all those energies right now as well.
And I think that's some of the tension we're feeling too, because the 9 is all about the endings and the 1 is about the new beginnings. And we are trying to hold both at the same time while we're,
Right.
we've got one foot straddled on each side of the line. And, with that, we have like the capitalistic intentions of, well, new year, new you, everything's got to be whatever. And we've just come out of like holiday hustle. We haven't even landed. And now we're expecting ourselves to change our lives, to make everything better, to, do all the things. And it's just this constant striving mentality. And it creates this urgency that disconnects us from our intuition, from ourselves, from each other. It's really uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable season we're in right now.
And you're reminding me that we're in winter. We're in winter, which is
We're
all
supposed to be
about
slowing down.
Exactly. It's about letting things just fall away and going super, super slow, if moving at all. And yet here we are wanting to get on the horse, like you just like that visualization described.
Yes. It's wild how we are going against our own internal cycles and even nature cycles. Like everything is in front of us. It's a roadmap of how we can live. And yet we've been conditioned to think that we need to hustle and grind and just continue doing the thing.
Yeah. I think it was in late November, early December, I did a talk just about that exact same topic, aligning with the seasons. And it was fascinating because really it was just a thought that I kept having recurringly over the years and never really acted upon. But it was a really rich conversation because so many of us feel like we're being dragged behind a horse that we didn't ask for that experience. We're going against our inner knowing on so many levels, in so many ways. And so the idea of slowing down doesn't even seem possible.
Well, and it's such a pervasive thing in society that we're supposed to have this busy holiday season and then the new year, new you, and whatever. Where when we start to feel like that's not working for us, we make ourselves wrong. We
Hmm.
think that, well, if everyone else is doing it, then like, why does that feel so foreign and so wrong for me? When in reality, it's that a lot of people aren't slowing down to ask themselves the question in the first place. And if they
Right.
did, they would be like, actually, you know what? I could use a little bit of chill right now. Hustle culture is very carefully calculated so that we are always in the doing. We don't get to be in the being. And when we're in the
Hmm.
being, we slow down, we ask questions. And that's when we become a problem to systems of power. Like, not to kind of go on a whole rant about all of that, which I easily could catch myself doing. But, when we don't slow down, there is no space to question
Hmm.
and question authority, question the structures of power. You know what I mean? And there's a reason why they keep us attached to our phones or attached to our desks. Like, so long as we are busy producing, which disconnects us from ourself and from, natural cycles, then we're not a problem.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, let's just disrupt. Let's set it all on fire.
Totally.
Metaphorically, mostly.
But we're witnessing some of these systems already starting to crumble right in
Yeah.
front of our eyes. And the reason is it's not working anymore. I mean, even just looking at the younger demographics that are saying, doing it, not going
Mm-hmm.
to work 40, 50 hours a week and get paid so little. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just have these natural shifts happening that are changing everything.
Yeah. And I think some of that is like a generational thing that's happening. But I also think it's because we've had this young generation is being parented by people who have been a little bit more conscious and a little bit aware, who've gone to
True.
therapy, who've learned the things.
Hmm.
And and it gives them permission to feel their feelings.
Yeah.
I got into a comment war this morning because I was feeling a little spicy in a conversation, and this guy was like going on about, well, you people with mental health issues, and I was like, babe, just because you haven't gotten diagnosed because you're too chicken to go to a therapist doesn't mean you don't have mental health issues. It means you just haven't gotten yours
Mm.
diagnosed yet. So, I think it's very easy to ignore and deny than to
Hmm.
actually roll up our sleeves and say the hard thing. And I mean, it's actually a big part of the work that I do and have been doing first with businesses and helping people just bring more of that authenticity to their brand and to their business. And then it just rolled into helping people do that in their lives. And
Hmm.
a huge part of it is being willing to be disruptive. It's
Yeah.
being willing to piss people off a little bit and to make people uncomfortable. And to do that because you are no longer making yourself uncomfortable for their sake, where we are
Right.
prioritizing our own need for comfort, even if it
Right.
means that it ruffles some feathers.
And really, that is the thing that's pervasive. I mean, all of these structures, systems, the things that we've focused on outside of ourselves in family systems, we've put all of our focus outside of ourselves.
Mhm.
And all of these distractions along with it, we've lost our sense of self. And then you add into that, like the difficult relationships we can get into that takes us even further away from ourselves. And we now need to reorient back. And once we do, we start to wake up and like, wait a second here. It makes me think of like The Matrix and those movies that show us, wait a second, this might not even be real.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And where it gets uncomfortable and challenging is that oftentimes when we have that realization, we are now enmeshed in people who are relying on us to continue to
Hmm.
show up in that way, and in the things that make us money and the things that provide us security and connection and belonging. They all hinge on us self-abandoning.
Hmm.
In my work, I refer to those as like our survival selves. So they're
Right.
like the archetypes that we embody in order to make it through when our truest self, the part that is, the most us, is what I call the unshakable self. And that's the self that stands firm in who they are, no matter what the situation is. So if it's, having a conversation with a bigot in the comments, or, talking to your best friend, that you are always you. And it takes a lot to even figure out who that is,
Hmm.
particularly when we are enmeshed in these different dynamics that are dependent on our old survival ways of being.
Yeah, and it makes me think about the channeled message you shared and the emphasis on don't get distracted by these top level things because underneath it is the safety and security. And I feel like that's the case with so much of what you're saying. It's like there's
Mhm.
always something deeper underneath that we're missing if we don't look there. And
Yeah,
those are the things that really anchor us and give us that foundation. But we're still so busy looking at the surface.
because we're taught to look at the surface, right? The surface
Hmm.
is the thing that we're gonna work towards, that we're gonna spend the money on, that is gonna be aspirational. It's the thing that's sold to us in magazines and ads and TV and the whole
Yeah.
shebang, right? I remember for the longest time, I was completely fixated on, I need to own a house. Like, that was, like, my
Mm.
thing, and we were living in Vancouver, and, like, that was just not an option, and it wasn't until I bought the house and still felt like I still have this itchy feeling. And we were fortunate the way things unfolded, like, we didn't have a mortgage, and, like, we didn't have any, like, there should not have been an itchy feeling underneath it. And then I had to sit with that and go, "Okay, so if I've got the house and the house was the thing and I still feel squiggly, like, what's underneath it?" And it was like, I wasn't looking for a house. I was looking
Hmm.
for stability. I was looking for something that couldn't be taken away from me. And then when I could start tapping into all the ways I was resourced and I actually had the things that I thought the house was going to bring, well, it was never about the house, right?
Yeah.
But we often don't slow down enough to even ask those questions.
Hmm.
And those things are not, the most obvious answers. Like,
Hmm.
I like to say it to you now. It's like, oh yeah, house is stability and safety. Like, of course.
Right.
But, you know, when it's the thing you're fixated on and you're striving for and you're planning for and saving up and like all of that kind of stuff, you don't even think to ask, okay, but why is it so important? You know what I mean? And it's and that doesn't have to be a house. That can be like, oh, well, I need that new designer handbag. Okay, well,
Hmm.
what do you think that's going to give you?
Right.
Like, what is it because it makes you feel good? Is it because you're treating yourself and maybe that's not something you would typically do? Is it because you think it's going to give you status? Is it because you think it's a work of art and it just brings you joy to just take in the wonder and the beauty of it? Like, is
Hmm.
it about honoring the craftsman behind it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always a reason,
Right.
but we have to actually ask the questions, and most times we don't bother.
Hmm. And I think most of us are actually following. There's this video called Music and Life, and Alan Watts is the narrator, but it's cartoon and it's done by the producers of South Park. So it's
Oh,
this really short little video, but it talks about the fact that we're always chasing this carrot. The carrot
mm,
of go to school, get good grades, get a job, get a raise, and start moving up the corporate ladder. And the whole time you're chasing this carrot. And then at some point you realize, oh, I've got the house and the picket fence and I've had my children and all those things. But there's still that niggling that you mentioned of something missing. And it's never
mm-hmm.
about the carrot. It was always about what was trying to come out from inside.
Yeah.
And that's the piece of turning inward, is that returning to where that precious light is within us that is wanting to be expressed.
I love that as a precious light. That's really beautiful. And I think we do all have that. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a
Hmm.
light, but it is. And it is, I have a lot of people who ask me about like what's my life purpose? Like they'll come in for
Hmm.
readings and I'm like, oh, well, you're not gonna like the answer to this one. Because I firmly believe that our entire purpose is not about who we raise. It's not about the jobs we have or the way that we help the world. I believe our purpose is to become the truest, fullest version of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the message, right? And so when we talk about this idea like chasing the carrot, well, of course it's going to feel unfulfilling because it has nothing to do with the fullness of who we are.
Hmm.
Talk about how we don't slow down and actually ask the question. There's also privilege in slowing down and asking the question.
Hmm.
If you're working 3 jobs to be able to make rent and to put food on the table, you are in that survival state of having to grind in order to get by. Don't feel bad if you haven't stopped to ask the question. You don't actually have the time and the space to,
Hmm.
and be gentle with yourself in that process. But for those of us who do have that little bit of capacity, I do feel like we have a bit of a responsibility to ask the
Hmm.
questions and to find out who we are. And also, we are worth knowing, even if it's only by ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, even if the truth we find is too scary for some reason to share with anyone else in the world, to know it for yourself,
Hmm.
like that, you are worth knowing, even if it's just by you. I know that that's probably the opposite of what a lot of us heard growing up, but it's true.
So much of what you're referring to is actually the conditioning that we need to strip away from.
Hmm.
It's actually the things we need to let go, the things that we've placed so much importance on because society is placing so much importance on. And yet, when you talk about coming back to that expression of yourself that is who you truly are, I was recently listening to, I think it was Robert Edward Grant. He's a polymath, and he was talking with Richard Rudd of the Gene Keys. And so he said, every single person on this earth has a mathematical representation that is unique.
Mm.
Like a signature that is proven mathematically to be absolutely unique, and that we're here to express that number, whatever that
Oh,
number
that's
is.
wild. Yeah.
Isn't that wild? When he
Mhm.
said it, I was just like, wow.
You know, I'm in the middle of reading Malala's latest book, and on the back
Mm,
cover, it says something to the effect of, I don't even know who I was supposed to be in this
right.
life, because she instantly became the Malala, capital M, right? That we know. And like, I feel that from a seeker, the heart of a seeker. Like, I feel that where of like, oh man, like, yeah, she didn't really get a chance to be anything other than this.
Hmm.
However, from this person who holds the philosophy that like we are on this journey to become the fullest version of ourselves, I actually think that the things that, shaped her, that made her Malala with the capital M, was exactly the point, right?
Right,
But
right.
it does feel a bit like predetermined. And I can see that, especially as a young person who's trying to find themselves, like I could see that being kind of discouraging. But I
Sure.
also feel like it's kind of the point, like it not in any kind of blaming way, but we are shaped by the experiences that we
Hmm.
have. And yeah.
And it's both, because I know that your human design, and one of the main things about human design is that you have these parts of yourself that are mapped out of, this is who you are. These are the parts that you can rely on and live from and express in the world. And yet there's these other areas that are usually the sources of our conditioning, whether it's
Mm,
about self-worth, whether it's about emotional experiences, and those become the distractors that the mind grabs onto. And
yes.
so we have all this wiring that is saying, hey, we can do all these things that are in alignment with who you were designed to be. And yet we can also continue to play the game of being distracted by those very things that are just sitting, waiting to be expressed. But that's the journey.
Mhm.
This is the conscious and the unconscious trying to find their way.
Mhm.
And once they do, it's like, oh, well, that wasn't so complicated, because it's right there in front of us.
Yeah, and also remembering that not everyone came here to do conscious work, which I
Exactly.
sometimes find myself really frustrated by,
Hmm.
because it does affect the relationships and the depth of some connections. Because people who are asking questions and people who aren't are just sometimes speaking a different language. It's not that one's better or worse than the other, but there is a disconnect in how they connect to
Sure.
the world. And I have to remind myself sometimes of like, oh, right. It's obvious to me because I've been doing this work for myself for
Hmm.
the last 17 years. It's not going to be not obvious to everybody else. And to love somebody without expecting them to have to wake up alongside you.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we're all at somewhere on that journey. And I always like to remind myself that I've been somewhere on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's wild to think back. Like, there was times when I would just throw my garbage out the window of my car when I was driving, like a long time ago. I want to make sure
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's clear. But that's so far out of my reality. And yesterday I saw garbage on the side of the road and I was just like, who would do that?
Mm.
But I did that.
Yeah.
That was just where I was at. And it's not where I'm at anymore. And we are all evolving wherever we're meant to be on that continuum. And it's important to have compassion for those folks they are where they are.
Yeah.
And this whole realm of looking at ourselves, it's only feels so recent that it's become kind of like acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
like almost to the point where everybody's doing it and the pendulum has swung, right?
Yeah, and everyone else is the weirdos and the misfits. But yeah, it is really interesting. And like I look at even the trajectory my own healing has taken in the last couple of years, where I've started moving more into psychedelic assisted therapy and that kind of stuff in my own practice, and then having how
Hmm.
that's evolved in my coaching. That stuff that was happening in like the 60s, right?
Sure.
But it was like those were the weirdos, those were the misfits. But now, like especially on the island, like, I don't think you could throw a stone without hitting somebody who is in some way connected to psychedelics, whether
Sure.
it's themselves or they know a friend or whatever. Like
Sure.
it's now so mainstream, and that's kind of a cool thing. Like I know there were a lot of people, we saw it like 2012 when a lot of people started to wake up. We saw it, and then it happened again during the pandemic where people, because they had that space from being everything else being stripped away, they had more time to contemplate and be open. Where spirituality became a bit trendy, and there were some people who were rejecting it, and they were just kind of like, oh, you can't just jump on this bandwagon. But I feel like, hey, the more of us doing the work, the better. Like,
Hmm.
do we want to commodify it? Do we want to like use so much white sage that now like indigenous people don't have it for their practice? Well, no, like there is still problems with like the commercialization of spirituality.
Sure.
But if we're talking about the seekers waking up, the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a crystal store in Vernon when I lived in the Okanagan for 4 years. And I thought it was hilarious because the crystal sort of stand, if you will, was in the middle of the store. It was a bookstore primarily. And people were just like magnetized to the crystals, especially the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was really such an interesting sign to see that pull towards those things. And to me, it showed me that, oh, things are really shifting energetically because of that witnessing. And whereas like you lived in Vancouver, I lived in Vancouver. I mean, Banyan Books has been there forever. And that's so normalized to see it in the Okanagan in a different way. It was just super cool.
Yeah, because even though Banyan Books is such an institution in Vancouver, it's also like not the most convenient part to get to. It's
Sure.
like it's half a block long, but it's like way the hell out in Kits.
Hmm.
Like it could probably count, and I lived there for 20 years. I think I could probably count the amount of times I went to Banyan on two
Yeah.
hands.
Yep.
And I've been like a deep seeker pretty much the entire time I lived in Vancouver.
Sure.
It's wild. Yeah. I think crystals are actually like a really exciting gateway. We see it at Golden Soul Sanctuary too. Like the kids love them. And
Yeah.
the things that people are drawn to are always really fascinating because it tells you a lot about them before they even know it themselves, which is really cool to witness.
Yeah.
The first time I ever got drawn to crystals was actually in the Okanagan. It was a shop in Kelowna. It was in the mall at the time, actually. That's how long ago it was.
I think it's still there.
Is it still there? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
In Orchard Park Mall.
Yeah, and I got drawn to a Lemurian quartz, and I had taken earth science in college, so like I had experience with specimens and whatever, but I didn't really think about them in any kind of magical way. And I picked up this stone, and I felt it go into my hand, and I went, and then the stone felt like nothing afterwards, and I was like, oh my god, I just stole energy from this store, and I didn't have the money to buy the crystal, so I put it back and I ran away. And then like I don't know, a decade later or something, I went back and I was like, oh yeah, so I stole the energy out of this crystal. I'm so sorry. And they were just like, oh, honey, no, that was for you. Like, it's okay. I was like, I zapped it and then I put it back and there was nothing left for the next person. I'm so sorry. They're like, no, that's not how they work. But it was one of those things where it was like, that was my time. Like that was, and the fact that it was a Lemurian quartz and then, the work that I did with ayahuasca for like years later was tied to a collective energy that lives in Mount Shasta, and that's tied to Lemuria. Like it all made sense with time,
Right.
but in the moment I was just like, oh God, what has just happened? I've had this experience.
You didn't understand your connection to it.
No, and instead of
Until
asking
later.
questions, I booked it out of the store.
Right.
So this is the beautiful thing, because when we normalize it, people aren't afraid to go to the counter and say, excuse me, I broke your crystal. I sucked out all its energy. And then you can say, now I get to be the person with the store who says it's okay.
Sure.
That was for you, which is really nice. But yeah.
And I think the normalization is something that is pretty cool to witness. Like
Agreed.
the witchiness coming to the forefront. I think recently I had Claire on, who you know. And we talked about that witchiness. We talked about how that's coming to the fold. And I love that energy is surfacing in such a powerful way. And in your store as well.
Yeah, it's really neat because we see it kind of rise in different cycles, right? So like astrology was really huge. Then spirituality kind of came. And then now, and they're all flavors of the same magic and medicine, really. What I think is really neat about the witchy element is that it is a return to the earth. So we are finding ways of honoring our cycles. We are finding ways of getting back to nature, of listening to plants, which was kind of the whole point of Claire's episode. And, they're all needed. Like they're different flavors of the same thing, but people are finding them in different ways. And, you talk about how it used to be commonplace to just like throw litter out of the car. Like when we have a reverence for the earth, that is what makes that no longer a thing, right? So it's really neat. And I think that that's one of the cool things about living on the island too, is like, it is such a magical place. Even like the place that we opened our store, there's like 5 witchy shops in a matter of a few blocks or something. And I love it. Like,
Hmm.
there are people who are like, aren't you worried about the competition? I was like, no, we're all doing our own thing. And people are going to resonate with who they resonate with. And yeah, I'm kind of here for all of us. Like the more of us waking up, the more businesses we need supporting these people anyway. So
Yeah, and your store is you're offering a very specific niche kind of energy, which is beautiful. Like I love it. Yeah.
yeah, it's, everything is done with intention. We make a lot of our
Hmm.
own stuff in-house. It is, that from the plant perspective, we have the essential oils that we bring in and that we craft with, which has been, my world for the last, I don't know, 16 years or so, long before had the business that I have now. Um, but then we have crystals and I get to do readings and it's kind of like my playground. I get to hold
Hmm.
space for really cool people. We do cacao ceremonies. It really is just a playground for me to bring all of the skills I've had cultivated over these decades and then all the things that I like to do and get to do them with really cool people who are heart-centered and intentional and trying to be the fullest version of themselves and healing their conditioning. Like I couldn't ask for a better job.
Hmm.
It's literally fun. Every day I get to go
Yeah.
in there.
And it's wild because I only moved to Nanaimo in March of last year. And I think it was about 9 months before I actually arrived that I knew I was coming. And so
Mm,
I joined all the Facebook groups and the spiritual groups. And I was just like blown away by how much is happening here on the island
hmm
in that
It's
realm.
magical.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable, actually. I mean, there's more events than you could even possibly attend,
hmm
which is so opposite. Like in the Okanagan, it felt like those things were absent. Like COVID really shut all that stuff down. And then it took a long time for it to start to resurface. It was only right before I left that there was starting to be these events. And so for me, I was just like, I was kind of drying up without that energy. And so to arrive here and just have it be overflowing was
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
I mean, Vancouver was kind of the same. Like there was always stuff going on, but like if you were somebody who wanted to host an event, it was really hard to find affordable space.
Sure.
So the events that you did go to were quite pricey and therefore quite exclusionary as well.
Sure.
And yeah, and there wasn't like a hub, like like the neighborhood that we're in, where you can go to all these different shops. Like we have,
Hmm.
most of them have community boards, like we do, so you can always see what's going on.
Sure.
Whereas everything is so distributed and spaced out that there isn't a hub in Vancouver. And so you would think in a big city that it would be easier, but in fact, I think it's way
Hmm.
easier to build community here than it was in the mainland.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is some good community here, which is really cool.
One of the things I love is because we're in such like a touristy kind of neighborhood, we get a lot of people who've just moved to the city.
Right.
And the number of conversations I have with people who are like, hey, yeah, I just moved here. I'm looking for people. Everyone I meet is just like super square and like doesn't like think like this and whatever. And I'm like, come, we are your people. We are the weirdos. We're ready to welcome you in.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have like so many different types of events too, like it really can meet you wherever you are, which is really,
Hmm.
it's really, and I mean, we're not for everybody, but for the people that we are for, they find themselves and they find each other. And it's so cool. I just get to
Yeah.
sit back and be like, oh, hey, all my favorite people are in the same room.
I just had this flash. Was there a show called Freaks and Geeks or
There
something like
was a
that?
show called Freaks and Geeks.
And I
Yeah.
remember loving that show. And then of course all the good shows get canceled, right? But it was
hmm
like something to identify with. And that show was exactly the energy of what you just talked about. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. There is something about like being not the cool kids at school. Like I went to art school, so it was a
Hmm.
little different because we were all weirdos, but when you have like a traditional high school hierarchy, it's really hard to not be the popular kids and to feel like you don't know where you belong. And if that is enforcing anything that you heard in family or in community before you even got into school, then that just like that becomes the armor that you have to shed in the years that come. And when I started my spiritual path in my 20s, I remember crying and saying to the healer who was in his 40s, and I said, I've wasted so much time. And he was like, honey, you're 20 years early. It's fine. Like, you're okay. And that was the thing. It was like just to put down my armor. But the fact that,
Hmm.
most of us aren't even starting to consider to take it down until our 40s, like it's sad. And one of the things I really wanted for our space was for it to be somewhere that people didn't have to armor. where they could come in and, they can say, I'm having a bad day and I don't want to share, but I still want to be here. Cool.
Sure.
Like we can hold space for that. Like whatever you
Yeah.
want. I don't ever want someone to feel like they have to put on a mask to show up to hang out with us. Like it's very come as you are. And all of you is invited. Like we don't need to hide. We don't need to, reject or exile parts of ourselves. And we need more spaces where all of us are invited to the table.
There was a store in Squamish called the Eclectic Circle. And that used to be like when I was having a rough day, I would just go there, go and walk through. And of course, the woman who owned it, she read cards and she was totally open to having conversations. So sometimes you got a free reading just by talking to her.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then you walk out feeling better and go back to your everyday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the ideal thing would be that we then start to find our people and our own, and we've unraveled those identities and things that we've put on as armor to survive. And then getting back to ourselves and getting onto our day, like that actually becomes the norm rather than having that relaxed state be the normal rather than having the armor be the normal.
Totally.
Yeah. The more we can do that, the more we can find the spaces where it's safe to do that, I think the better.
Yeah. So I want to double back to something that you mentioned that I think is important. I don't know we've talked about it too much on the podcast, which is the psychedelic experiences. So for me, I think it was 2018, sounds about right, 2018, 19, where I, for the first time in my life, did psilocybin. And I did it with intention and in the forest and had this like mind-blowing experience and then continued to have ceremonies after that. And I always make the comment, like, psilocybin saved me thousands of dollars in therapy.
Oh, for sure.
And I just find it was such a helpful piece. And so I'm just curious what you want to say about that realm.
Yeah. So psilocybin, my experience with it was in high school where I was not intentional and I was just tripping balls. So for me, my first 5 years of my spiritual journey, it was ayahuasca. I think if anyone had told me what I was signing up for, I probably wouldn't have done it. So I'm super glad it worked out this way. But I went into it thinking it was like a psychological tool that would help me know myself better. And then I ended up communing with the divine, which is, a slightly different experience. And I learned a lot about myself in those spaces. I think as I'm learning now, I think a lot of the space that was held was not entirely safe. And it actually did reinforce a lot of old things, which is now what I'm deconstructing, which is fine. Most recently, I've been working with MDMA. So my therapist actually works with MDMA and psilocybin, but they have completely different medicines. So psilocybin is really great for that cosmic understanding, that intuitive awakening, and then just being in that expanded consciousness state, which is really beautiful and a similar medicine to what ayahuasca offers in that way. So, which I thought, okay, sure, yeah, pass me the mushrooms, let's do that. And she was like, oh, honey, that's cute. No, MDMA is particularly great for trauma. And one of the things that all of these offer is in the 2, sometimes up to 4 weeks following a session, we're forming new neural pathways afterwards. And so for me, because I've got complex PTSD, MDMA enables me to drop all my protectors, to have completely shame-free discussions that are very candid about my past, which I always feel like I'm pretty shame-free, but then things creep in afterwards and you start to question it. And I go, oh, okay, maybe I do have some feelings about that. And so in this case, it's completely unfiltered and it's, 5 to 7 hours of therapy. And then in the 2 weeks that follow, I baby myself so much. I monitor what things I'll watch on TV, what foods I take in. I make sure I'm drinking enough water. And while I'm so mindful of that because I know I'm forming new neural pathways. And so given that I'm using it as a part of trauma rehabilitation, I don't know if that's the right word, but it is specifically for that, I'm allowing my brain to have new corrective experiences so that the neural pathways that I'm rebuilding are supportive of the person that I want to be. And when we talk about Malala not knowing who she would be if not for her experience at the Taliban, I've had that question about, my trauma, and I go, I wonder who I would be if not for this childhood. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I like the person I am. But when I work with psychedelics, I know that I get to find new ways back to her. And I feel like that's part of their gateway, particularly when you have integration support and you're not just let out into the wild and, having to fend for yourself with these new mind blowing sometimes life-disrupting
Oh, yeah.
experiences.
And I think you're highlighting both something to do with psychedelics and also the piece that was shared in the channeling up front.
Mm,
It's
tell
like
me more.
the whole piece around wanting to jump on the horse and wanting to have the experience with psychedelics, but not having the time to slow down and be with the experience. And I think you described your experience of integrating in a
Mhm.
beautiful way. And I just think, like, even myself, I would have to go back to work and back. I think I was even working at treatment centers at the time, and I was like, had to keep it secret. I couldn't even talk about it.
Mhm.
And so it partially the not having the luxury of being able to slow down that much, but also trying to go for that next thing, the next experience, signing up for the next retreat. And I
Mhm.
see that a lot. It's like people not having or being able to take the time to integrate and to notice all these things.
I think the other piece of that too, though, is, because sometimes we don't have the luxury, like you said, but I
Hmm.
think also sometimes just because we aren't calibrated to the work yet, maybe we chase the experience because we know that the good thing is on the other side of it, and we're
Yeah.
expecting the experience to do the work for us. And that's when I was in corporate and I would go for every 3 months, give or take. That's what that was. That was me not actually embodying the medicine
Right.
and the lessons I was learning. It was me looking to Aya to save my life and to make it better. And guess
Right.
what? Within like I don't know, by the time of my third or fourth ceremony, I got laid off from my corporate job and I had to start all over anyway.
Hmm.
So, we can't look to external things to fix us because one, we're always going to have someone's hand in our pocket just
Sure.
pulling out dollar bills. But two, it's not long lasting unless it comes from within. And so this is why integration and embodiment is so important, I believe.
Hmm.
And I say that as someone who totally let ceremony be my quick fix. Like I'm guilty of it too. That's how I know it's a thing. So I'm not
Sure.
condemning anyone. We don't know
Yeah.
better.
Well, myself as well. I mean, just wanting the answer.
Hmm.
Show me the thing that is going to unlock the
Whatever's
dam,
next. Yeah.
whatever's next. Right. And
Which is so hard because it's uncomfortable in the liminal. Like in that
oh,
in
yeah.
between phase, it sucks. It sucks because we
Hmm.
want to do something and there's nothing to do. The doing
Right.
is just sitting with it. And especially if we've got programming around like laziness and needing to be productive, to be valuable and all of that. Whoa, that's even worse. But like
Hmm.
not being able to, it feels really disempowering. But when you have a relationship with your guides, with the divine, with whatever, and you can surrender it to that, it no longer feels unempowered. It actually feels supportive and like you're held.
Right.
But that's
Because you're
given
not
up a
walking
lot of
alone in.
control.
Right.
Exactly.
You now have a team that you can refer to and
Yeah.
ask for guidance.
Yeah. And be supported by and know, like, especially when that channel is clear and that relationship is strong, the discomfort of not knowing what to do next is lessened by the fact that they're going to tell you. You're
Right.
going to know what to do and when to do it. You just got to chill in the meantime. And once you have that
Hmm.
security, the rest of it feels a lot easier.
Sure. And I think the other thing people might struggle with is that these medicines are very metaphorical, at least my
Mm.
experience with them. So they're not always direct. Like I've heard, I've never done ayahuasca, but I've heard that it can be quite the trickster in terms of leading you down a path and showing you something and then coming back around and saying it differently. It's like, oh, so just so you can sort of question your own reality, I guess.
Yeah.
But not everybody sees the world metaphorically. Not everybody has those kind of lenses to look through. So you can
Yeah.
actually, when I've sat with people to talk about their experience, what seems so obvious to me, it's like they don't notice it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is earlier in my journey and I mean even into my coaching, I felt like I was given this gift of being like a decoder ring that I would be like, "Hey, would you like to know what I'm getting in terms of those
Sure.
symbols and whatever?" And I'm going into in April, I'm starting a certification specifically for integration of psychedelic journeys so that I
Nice.
can do it in a more trauma informed way rather than just basing it on like my own decades of experience. And everything that I'm learning just in following the teacher is like how much I have robbed people the experience of
Oh,
finding it out for themselves. Because while, yes, I did have a consent based thing of, hey, do you want my
sure.
input? Yes or no. And if it's a no, then like I shut the fuck up and that's fine. But it's not always my job to give the answers. And in fact, when it lands, and if you think about whenever you've had your own epiphanies and then like the light bulb goes off and you're like, holy crap, this just changed everything. But it came from you, how much more satisfying that is than if you
It's
went to
way
a
more
psychic or
satisfying.
whatever. Yeah. So apologies to everyone I have ever given answers to. I'm learning. And, I do want to help. And it's not even about making myself like the oracle or the knowledge or the whatever. It's just, I know what it's like to have the questions and I'm like, I've got answers and they're not mine to give. So I'm learning to shut up a little bit more and to let people have their experience.
Yeah, thanks for that, because it's the dilemma of not being able to see it when you're in it, and yet needing to figure it out by yourself.
Well, and this is where I think, having someone as a guide who can ask the questions or who can just hold space while you talk it out, and then you start to figure it out for yourself rather than just like ruminating by yourself or writing in a journal or something.
Sure.
I think without leading somebody, I think just holding space allows for epiphanies to come, and we need more space held for us in general. Yeah.
And that's the essence of coaching. It's not about giving answers. It's about supporting and guiding with the right questions and
Exactly.
and pulling those things out, having that person speak them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love, and I'm sure you've had the same thing where like you're in session with someone and then you see the light bulb go off and you're just like, okay, you're picking up what I'm putting down. Like, it's so beautiful to witness people figuring their stuff out. Like it is my job as a witness, like in the store, in circle, in coaching, like in all of it, is like one of the greatest honors of my life. And I don't even say that in any kind of exaggerating way, because people, like, to be witnessed is such a vulnerable, intimate thing. And for someone to let me in enough to do that, whether that's one-on-one or in group, I'm humbled by it. Like it is, and I think about the spaces where I've been willing to share and when I haven't been willing to share, even though I seem like I'm an open book all of the time. And I know what it feels like to be held. And for someone to let me do that, I'm just like, thank you.
Oh yeah. It's beautiful. And I think it makes me think of my 7-8 years in treatment centers and watching people just stepping into the journey, because treatment is often their doorway into spirituality, because it's the addiction is usually the suppression of that or the lack of connection to that.
Yeah.
And to see people wake up and to hold space for them, and same with the men's work that I do and in groups and one-on-one, it's just like, wow, like what a privilege to be able to witness this journey and to see the steps you're taking and the courage it takes, and having been there myself to know what it feels like and how hard it is, and to see someone else doing it, it's just like, it's this beautiful full circle moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's like no one really talks about. And it's literally like the sexiest part of the work. Like it's the most exciting. It is the most thrilling, and the most validating, I think, too. Because you get to be a part of something bigger. And we're all healing for our own selves, but like the impact that it has on the collective, and when we can see that ripple effect happen, sometimes it's just like, thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. Thank you for the opportunity and the privilege and the absolute honor of being here in circle with you, and to watch people witnessing each other.
Oh yeah.
And to watch people who, like, I remember during COVID, I ran a program and we had someone show up, and the week one, her camera was off and she was like, yeah, I'm here, but like, I'm not participating. My camera's off, my mic's off. I was like, yeah, cool, no problem. And then week two, she had her mic on, but she wouldn't have her camera on. By the end of it, she was chatting up a storm, probably more than everybody else. And it was so cool because I'm like, you wouldn't even turn your camera on or your microphone on in week one. Yeah. Here we are, like 6 weeks later, you're little chatty Cathy. Like, I love it. And that speaks to the safety, right? Like when I always say the safer you feel, the deeper you'll go. And anything that I can do to help cultivate that within somebody where they can feel safe to be themselves, yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could go on so many tangents just based on what you just said.
Yeah.
I think I just want to end with, every once in a while, someone comes back around and says, hey, that thing you did, that was really helpful. And because it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, we don't always get to see the impact of a conversation or a support session, whatever it looks like. And so
sometimes
when it comes
it's a
back
Facebook
around,
post.
Sometimes it's a Facebook post.
You
Yeah.
know, like something you posted 3 years ago that you didn't
Mhm.
even, you're just shouting into the void because it's
Yeah.
social media and that's what we do. And then someone from high school reaches out and says, "Hey, when you did such and such, like, how
Mhm.
did you get through that?" Or that really meant a lot, or I saw myself in that.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Because
these micro moments.
I don't know about you, but sometimes it can get really quiet in this work. And
Hmm.
in those quiet moments, it's like, am I really having an impact? Is this really what I'm meant to be doing? Like we always have these moments. And so when we get some feedback, it's like, oh, okay, it is worth all the effort and all the work, because it is work to do this work with people. And there's also
For
so much
sure.
reward, right? It's kind of two sides of the same thing. And you're right. We don't talk about this often.
Yeah.
It's good
This
to
is where I'm
mention.
grateful for the store because I get instant feedback just from conversations, let alone sessions.
Yes.
Whereas when I was working entirely online, where I was like, tapping on the microphone, like, "Hello, is this thing on? Is anybody out
Yeah.
there?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I actually stopped doing videos of just me talking because it's so foreign to my nervous system to not have someone
mm,
else there. And that's why
mm,
this podcast is so nourishing, because even though we're not in the same space, we're still connected. We're still having this conversation, and
for sure.
it's way better. I'm responding to something rather than trying to push a rock up a hill. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
find conversation is a lot easier than trying to spontaneously come up with like the cool short
Hmm.
form because nobody has attention spans these days,
Sure.
tidbit of information. I'm like, I'd rather have a long form conversation and just get really real, like roll up our sleeves
Exactly.
and say like, yeah, sometimes it's messy. Let's just get her done together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So this feels like a good place to press pause.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I
you.
always close by asking my guests the same question. And the question I want to ask is, what is one simple way someone could connect with the sacred today?
Mm. So the first thing that I saw when you asked that was dropping into your heart and saying, "What do you need right now?" So it's the sacred within you as opposed to anything outside of you. Just asking your heart, "What do you need right now?" It might
Mm,
be a cup of tea, it might be a conversation with a friend, it might be a nap. you know, um, just give your heart permission. Nothing's too big or too small.
I love that. I love the simplicity of that. And I love the accessibility of that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been a beautiful conversation.
You're welcome. And if anybody wants to stay connected, what's the best place to find you, knowing that we'll put all of that information in the show notes?
Yeah. So if you are local to us, you can pop on by to Golden Soul Sanctuary in the Old City Quarter. Otherwise, I'm online at seryna.ca and I'm at Seryna Myers on most social media.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So nice to reconnect in this way and have you on the podcast and have this conversation. I really appreciate all the directions we went. And I know that we could have gone in many others. So thank you for this
Well,
conversation.
thank you for hosting it. It's good to have spaces like this. People are looking for it.
Hmm. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. If this conversation resonated, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, or share the podcast. It truly helps this work reach the people who are meant to find it. And if you'd like to explore more of my work or connect with me directly, you can visit rosstayler.com, and that is Tayler with er.com. Until next time, may your day be slow and sacred.